In this video, we're going to talk about how to set expectations and collaborate with the parent so you can be sure that your swim lessons are going to be successful. Let's start with setting expectations. I think it's really important that when you first meet a family, that you have a conversation with them and help to understand what their primary concern is for their child with special needs and why they're bringing them to swim lessons. Almost always, the primary concern is going to be safety. They want their child to have fun, they want their child to learn to swim, but mostly they want to know that their child is going to be safe, whether they're at a swim party with their friends or there's an accidental time when they fall into the pool, that they're going to be able to be safe in those scenarios. And it's important for you to understand exactly where the parent's coming from before you even get started. You want to know, are they just trying to refine a swim skill, or does the child have no swim skills at all and they just want to have very basic ones? Often, for the kids that I work with, the skills we're working on are just drowning prevention. So we want them to be able to submerge under the water without taking water in. I want them to be able to get back to the surface of the water by themselves and then swim a short distance so they can get to the wall or some other place where they're safe. Now, this is going to be very different from what you might find in your regular swim lessons, where you're doing a different swim skill every single week and you're pushing the kids forward and refining those skills as you go along. For our kids with special needs, we need to scale that back a little bit. We need to understand just the top few priorities, 1, 2, maybe 3 skills that we're trying to develop for this child, because it's going to take a lot of repetition to learn those skills. So it's going to take longer and more practice week after week in order to get that taken care of. So the first thing you really want to do is talk to the parent, understand their top concerns, and set expectations for what can reasonably be accomplished during your time together. The next thing you need to know is sometimes when parents are coming in, their behavior might be a little off-putting. Sometimes these families have fought so hard to have their kids accepted, to have their kids have a seat at the table, that they come in and they're kind of in fighting mode. I mean, imagine you're in their shoes and everywhere they go, people tell them no, you can't be part of our soccer crew because your child can't follow directions. No, you can't be part of the gymnastics class because your child isn't safe. No, you can't have a music lesson because your child can't follow directions. I mean, they get no's everywhere they go. So I'm so happy that you're watching these videos and we can say, yes, you can be part of our swim lessons. But recognize that that parent probably had to fight a lot for their child, to advocate for them to be able to show up in all of these places. And so they might be in a little bit of a fighting mood when you first meet them. You want to really reassure them and let them know that you're on the same team and that you want to work with them to help their child to be the most successful. And the best way to do that really is to have clear divisions of responsibility. What's a division of responsibility? That means that I am responsible for the safety and well-being of the child when they're in the pool. The parent is responsible for the child's safety and well-being when they're on deck. And that's a really important thing to bring up right off the bat. Sometimes what I find is that families come and either they're not used to letting someone else take control, so they're overstepping their boundaries. I've even had a parent start to get into the pool with me, even though they didn't have their swimsuit on, just because they couldn't help themselves. They saw their child struggling and wanted to jump in and help them or save them from the struggle that they were going through with the swim lesson. And so the first step is just recognizing that, like, I've got this when I'm in the pool. I will keep them safe, and reassuring that to the parent. But then you'll have other parents that will come in and their expectation is, you're the expert, here's my child. And then they just kind of give up responsibility as soon as they walk through the door. And that's not going to work either. You need them to take responsibility when the child's on deck so that they can transport them from the bathroom and to where you are in the pool, because you can't be getting up and out and running all over the place in between each of your swim lessons. So you want to set that division of responsibility right off the bat. You say, in order to make your child successful, it's very important that you know that when your child is on deck, they're your responsibility and I need you to keep them safe. And when they're in the pool with me, you can trust that I'll be responsible and keep them safe. Does that make sense? And that's how you want to present it to them. Another thing I commonly encounter with parents is that they may want me to push their child a little bit harder than their child's ready to be pushed. They might literally want me to push their child in, for example, if the child isn't ready to get into the pool. And what I need to communicate to them is that swim lessons are all about trust. I have to build trust, I have to build rapport with a child before I can teach them anything. And so I need to be able to control the rate of which I am putting demands onto the child. So I like to have the conversation ahead of time. If a family member is saying, I want you to push them more, what I try to do is repeat back to them what I hear. I'll say, it sounds like what you're saying is you feel like I'm not pushing your child enough and you want them to achieve their skills more quickly. Do I have that right? And by repeating that back, by rephrasing it back, the parent knows that I heard them, that I understand what they want to do, and they feel understood. And then from there, I can pivot and say, it makes sense why you want me to push your child harder. However, and then I can give whatever it is that I think of why that's not a good idea. However, I want to make sure your child's successful. And it's very important that they trust me if we're going to have a successful swim lesson. So I'm gonna have to go a little bit slower than maybe what you want because I've got to build that trust. So you see how I've repeated back to them what their concern is. I've summarized it, so I've made sure that I understood them correctly. I acknowledge that it makes sense that they feel that way, but then I tried to give them a different perspective of why I'm running the session the way I am. It's so that their child can be successful, which ultimately is what we both want. In summary, when you're working with a child with special needs, you want to start out by setting clear expectations with the family as to what skills you're going to be addressing, what can be accomplished in the time you have together, and what the division of responsibility is.